Well, Kyle, thank you so much, man, for joining me on the You're Not Alone podcast today. This one's been a little work in the making. I have to tell my audience that I made a little mistake, and we had this originally scheduled for May, and
Sounds good.
I got on my social like later on whatever day it was that we were supposed to record, and you were like, "Hey man, are we still doing this episode?" And I literally felt so horrible because I was in Miami with my wife celebrating her 30th birthday and thought that I had cleared my calendar, and it didn't happen. I just
I
missed
hear
it.
you. I
So
hear you.
thank you for gracing me today, man, and sort of showing me a little grace and compassion and being like, okay, he's a human. He makes mistakes. Let's run it back.
Yeah, I'm grateful to be here. Thanks for
Yeah,
having me.
yeah, of course, man. So we were sort of talking about this before uh, I hit record, which was you seem to just be on this personal journey of growth and transformation and healing. And I think that there are a lot of components there. But I sort of want to pass the mic over to you and just sort of ask you, I guess, when did you know that you needed to like start on this journey, or how did it get to sort of where you're at now?
Yeah. The funny thing is, I feel like now I better understand that. Like, I almost feel like I'm being guided, to be totally honest. And one of the
Yeah.
biggest things over the last couple of years is I've sort of surrendered in a way and allowed myself to be guided and sort of resisting it less. But I'd say
Mm.
it started with, you know, the seed was kind of planted sophomore year of college, where my homie had taken a Buddhism class and he was like, "Yo, like, do you know about meditation?" And I was like, I've heard the word before, but I have no idea what that means.
Yeah.
And so we sort of tabled that, and he was my best friend at the time, so he was a huge influence on me. And then about a year later, I, long story short, my eye was messed up. I had a paper to write. I was stressed. I was like, let me meditate.
Yeah.
I meditated for 5 minutes, was like, okay, not for me right now. But the seed had already been planted. And when I graduated, I really noticed how meditation was impacting him.
Mm.
And I saw that like Kobe, Oprah, Phil Jackson, just people I admired, were big advocates of meditation. And I read Steve Jobs' biography, and he was like, without meditation and acid, like Apple wouldn't be what it is. And I'm just like, okay, like, like, okay.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
I was like, that's a big fucking deal. And so then, can I curse on this?
You can literally say whatever you want on this
Okay, cool.
podcast. There are
All
no
right, all right.
restrictions, bro.
No,
None.
no rules. I love it. I love it. Yeah. So that's what really initially um, got me very interested in meditation. And then I was really reading a lot about habits and was nerding out about that. And I was like, okay, let me make meditation a habit. Did that, started seeing how it was impacting me. Was teaching third grade at that time. And then to make the story shorter, basically I was like, okay, meditation helped me see like, all right, we have so much to offer from being ourselves, just from being humans. We have so much value. And I really felt like society made it so that we were way more boxed in than we needed to be,
Mm.
and we're sort of treated as these, invaluable, beings, unless we had a certain status or car or house or title, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And my practice was helping me see like, no, like we are like these powerful ass beings that can really create whatever the fuck we want, but we
Yeah.
just aren't all aware of that. And so that was the initial energy behind my first company, and that, we built a meditation community. We were bringing meditation to different companies, and that was great. And so now where I'm up at now, it's sort of like kind of full circle of that, because I realized in that process, what I was really helping people do was connect more with themselves and their value, so that they could express that and share that with the world. And I was honing in a lot on the internal stuff, but I realized, okay, this next level is to really help people show up powerfully, because a lot of us have missions, have purposes that feel important to us, but we question ourselves, or we feel like that is abnormal to listen to that. And that's a lot where I was getting at with the surrendering part. It's like a lot of us have missions on our hearts, a sense of almost like an assignment that's given to us. And
Yes.
we get these signs dropped, through conversations, through music, through, just meeting people randomly and it feeling super mystical because you're like, wow, why did that happen? And so just realized in the last year that I'm not in control. There are certainly things I can control, but
Right.
I'm not in control of this big thing. And so it's important for me to just surrender and just allow it to happen, allow myself to be the vessel, allow myself to be used, in the way that it's important for me to be used. And so, yeah, that's what brings me to here.
Yeah. And so it's funny that you even say that, because my wife and I literally last night, no joke, last night, we're talking about how it's my personal belief as well that God, higher power, whatever you subscribe to. Okay. So I want to, let's bring everybody to the table. Whoever you're praying to, whatever you believe in, that's fine. I think that we're all sort of connected to this bigger thing, to your point. And again, God, life, whatever it is, put something on your spirit. And I was telling my wife last night, I didn't grow up daydreaming about learning how to play the guitar and sing. That wasn't what was put on my spirit. That's not what I daydreamed about. That wasn't what people were sort of, you talk about the breadcrumbs, and I was thinking about The Alchemist. I don't know if you've read The Alchemist.
Yeah, I love that book.
It's literally one of my favorite books. But they talk about the omens, which is basically just the signs, the breadcrumbs, and that surrendering aspect. So it's interesting that you bring this up, right? Because you talk about human beings so we're in a system.
Yeah.
And right now, the way that the system is set up, and again, there's a lot of different ways to look at it, because some people, they look at the way that the system is set up right now and they go, okay, this is a game, and the game is acquiring capital. And when I acquire that capital, it can get me more freedom. If you have a healthy mindset around it, it's it can get me more of what I want, blah, 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 blah. But there are a lot of people, I think, sort of wandering around that have subscribed to okay, I'm in a system, in a society right now where, it's my output it becomes my income. And so there's so many people that have to take jobs that aren't fulfilling, or things that they don't necessarily want to do. And yet they've still got this little voice, this little tiny voice. And it sort of gets further and further away. I think they talk about this in The Alchemist, where it gets quieter and quieter as time goes on. And I think that is a big reason why we are seeing so much depression, anxiety, loss of purpose, uncertainty in the world, because we've sort of been led to believe that this is sort of how life is. And again, in the system that we're set up, that is how it is to a certain extent. You have to find a way to make money, to pay bills, put food on the table. And the majority of the time, I feel that is at the sacrifice of maybe what that person's real calling is, because there's a lot of reasons, right? Some people are scared. They're like, okay, well, what are people going to think about me if I pursue this path? Or they look at it, and I get this is sort of the more logical approach. How is that going to make me money? And what is the sacrifice going to be? And to tie off my thought to what you were saying, that surrender to the unknown, the surrender to, I have to control my destiny, and instead put a little bit of faith in something got put on my soul. This is exactly what I was telling my wife last night. And some variation of that. I don't know what that is going to be, I know what I daydream about. I know what I would like it to be. But if whatever variation of, if I just honor what's in my soul and I sort of take that path, and again, life isn't linear, everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
But it has just been this year that I've gotten to that point. Just this year. The first 2 years when I went full time into this business, I was pure fear. Because I wanted to keep doing it. And I was like, I need to make money doing this.
Yeah.
And at the start of any business, as you know, since you're an entrepreneur as well, it's getting traction and getting your name out there, and a little bit of that insecurity. How am I going to pay the bills? This, that, and the other. It's stressful. It's stressful.
Yeah. It is. 100%. Yeah. I mean, and props to you for leaning in and getting to the point. And I think, what you're saying is super valid, because the reality is that we do have to pay bills and we do have to survive. And when our basic survival needs aren't met, then it's hard for us to really think about that higher level consciousness of like, oh, what's my purpose? What's on my heart? What's my soul telling me? You know what I mean? So
yes.
Yeah, I feel like that's super valid. And I love hearing, like, you feeling like you're getting to this point where you're surrendering. I mean, I think a part of it that sort of dawned on it for me is like, if you think about us as little kids, right? Like, we just do things because we are inspired to do them. We might be drawing or rapping or singing or dancing or creating something because that is what we've been moved to do, right? And then I feel like when we become these adults, we're almost told like, oh, I can't just do things because I enjoy doing them. Like it needs to be tied to some sort of metric, that society tells me is worthy. So I feel like even outside of just paying bills, I do also feel like there's a part of society that tells us, okay, being an adult means that you aren't doing things that are hobbies, or things that you love doing. Yeah.
Quit being a kid.
Yeah. And I feel like tied in with that point is like, when you were a kid, you didn't try to control the things that you enjoyed.
No, you just did them because you didn't even think about that. It was just, you just did it because it was fun and you couldn't wait to do it.
Exactly. Right. And so I feel like, can we bring some of that into, that's a big part of what I'm saying in surrender. It's like, okay, at the end of the day, I'm not in control anyway.
Yeah.
So if I'm trying to control it, I'm just stressing myself out over something that I'm not in control of,
It's so true. It's the control fallacy, man. And I did it myself, and I've seen it with my wife, and I've seen it with other people where people drive themselves nuts trying to control outcomes. And I just got tired of trying to do it, man. I just realized like this is exhausting. Even so, like the way that I came up in the adult world was corporate America, specifically technology sales, and we were forecasting 4-5 times a week: Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then we had like a Friday deal update in the morning. You want to talk about controlling outcomes? And if you didn't hit metric, like we were getting measured on like the week. And so I sort of came up in this system where like, oh, this is sort of how you run a business and sort of how you run your life. And as I've become more comfortable as an entrepreneur and my own sort of boss, I guess I am. I report to me. I guess that is true. Sort of unlearning some of that because there was so much angst in that, and also a lot of greed. Like I've reflected on my time at Cisco, and it was like, not to air them out, I still think that they're a great company, but it was just never enough. And of course, they're a publicly traded company. So when you're reporting to Wall Street, which again, we're talking about the system we live in and how we're assigned value, the banking system runs the world. Finance runs the world. Money was the very first metric in modern society that sort of gave us that respect, and that, you know, like, because we're all sort of like monkeys at the end of the day, right? Like, we're just like a more evolved version of that. And there was an interesting study I read that it's basically the same dynamics, man. Like the monkey that sort of gets pushed to the edge of the group starts to exemplify, or starts to like show signs of depression and anxiety. They'll start like losing hair, will start like their hair will start falling out. They'll not be as social with the other monkeys, and like all these things start to happen that we are seeing in our society because so many people feel left out of the equation. They don't think that their lives mean anything, which I'm so glad that you brought up, because they don't have the car, the watch, the clothes, the money, the girl, the popping bottles, whatever it is that our society sort of has subscribed to. And it's so empty. That's why I think there's so much hunger for this type of conversation right now.
Yeah, 100%. And to your point, right? It's like, I feel like a new angle of what I've, you know, where I'm growing at is appreciating abundance, right? So like I'm already rich, you know, I refer to myself as rich, but monetarily, like, I'm going to have way more money in the bank, you know, like I'm doing all right now, and I'm going to have, you know, I'm not like, you know,
money is coming to you kind of thing, right? Like it's flowing to you.
Exactly. You know, so like, I'm not, I did have to work through a lot of my relationship to money, but like, I see it more as energy now. And I think really a big shift is realizing that, like, you know, when I was referring to meditation helping me understand how powerful we are, I think a big thing is like, we almost put money above ourselves without realizing that, like, we are the bank. Like, we are
I love
the
that
creator,
so much.
you know, like we, you know, if you think about, you know, if you think about Kanye West, right? Kanye West is a billionaire because he created value, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And
value
like,
in the marketplace. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. From his creations, from things he cared about, from things he wanted to make. Right. And like, if he was to like go broke, you know, or be out of money, like, we wouldn't refer to him as poor, because you know, he could just do another campaign, like put out another album, like start something else, because the value it comes from him, you know? And I feel like that is a disconnect that we have, is that school, you know, or just the way society treats us, it doesn't tell us like, yo, you have godlike power inside of you. Like, you can think a thought and make anything happen. Like, you are that powerful, you know, like, we're not told that, you know? And so I feel like that's a big thing that, you know, I feel like once we're more aware of, then we're like, oh, fuck. Okay. I can think about planting a tree and plant a tree. You know, I can think about like building a bridge and build a bridge. It just might take more time depending on the magnitude of the thing that I'm creating. So I think that's the real shift that I'm seeing for myself, and a lot of the message I want to share with other people as well.
So I'm curious about something. So I have a question coming here in a second, but the one thing that I will say is I'm going to butcher the quote, but it was like, basically like, everything that you look around and see that's like human made, like, because I want to get away from like saying man-made. I feel like that's like the old phrase, but that's changing. Like, everybody's at the table now. Like, anything that you can look at and see that's human made, like, somebody thought of that.
Yeah.
They thought of that, and then they created it. And that is what is so, it's like what you said, godlike. Like, we can create. We can create. I think, though, the more and more that I think about it, the key is to create with compassion. Yes, like, I think money is important, and I think that it adds value. But it can have its downsides if you don't have the relationship with money in a healthy place. I didn't have that. I've been working on that. So I'm curious to hear about your journey with money. Can you walk me through that?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm curious to hear a little about you, like how you're working through it as well. Yeah, I mean, I would say, like, my family's, they're immigrants from the Caribbean, and so they've sort of done the American dream of like having a job, getting a house, et cetera, but there still was that sense of scarcity, and so they were, especially, I don't know who's going to see this, but anyways, I'm talking about my fan, whatever. So yeah, I mean, just that sense of like needing to always save, needing to always hoard, needing to always like make sure that like, you're okay. Even if you are okay, like, okay, we have enough of whatever, but like, we're going to like, and this one's old, but we're just going to keep it here and just put it in the garage. Even though we're never going to look at it, we're just going to keep it there, Yeah. And so I've had to, a lot of my journey has been opening up to abundance, opening up to more than enough. Yeah. And being okay with receiving that, and sort of changing my thoughts on money from being, the hearing like money doesn't grow on trees when it literally does grow on trees, but like, or just like feeling bad, if you about making a lot of money, you know what I mean? And so, I think there's been a shift there for me. And then also realizing that like, it can be easy, I can create things and receive it, with ease, has been a really like one of the biggest shifts for me as well. Just realizing like it's energy, right? So if I put energy out, like I'm going to get that energy back, right? If I create something that's valuable, I'll receive that same energy back. And it's, if I get more skills, help more people, then I receive more, and then also being willing to charge more as well, being willing to be like, oh, okay, like I'm worthy of charging this, Yeah,
definitely. And so I think I hear that all the time though with immigrant families, like the first people that come in and sort of lay the roots, it is that like fear mentality. Like we got to make sure that we keep ourselves fed and we keep the lights on and we do this and we do that. And, people are coming, a lot of times it's immigration into our country and they're coming here to participate in the American dream, what you just said, create a better life for their children, which is clearly on display now. So shout out your family, man. That shit's like amazing to me. It really is. It's just, it warms my heart so much. One side note on like compassion, right? So like obviously we live in this certain structure right now where it's sort of like you got to earn your way. And I get that. I really do. I totally understand the mentality of like, if we don't sort of create a little bit of fear, a lot of people maybe wouldn't work as hard or like try to achieve something or get something done. But it does put people in that scarcity mindset, and that can impact your mental health. It can impact your relationships. I think that if we were like even in just like a slightly more compassionate society, for example, like if people wanted to immigrate in, I'm not like a open borders person. I'm not like everybody come on in. Like you don't even need to show identification. I think that there still needs to be a process, but like for the people that we do say like, hey, yeah, you can come in. I don't know, like would it be interesting if we had like some sort of little stipend or something to sort of help them, like, hey, here's your first 3 months rent covered. Get your job, get your stuff. We want you to contribute in our society and you need to be a part of it. But just sort of make it a little easier for that transition in. I think about that, like just little ways that we could make society maybe slightly more compassionate. Now, of course, other people would hear that and be like, what, they get money and I don't? And I think that that's why probably the conversation ends right there, because I understand that side. But I just think that with your parents and other friends of mine who they're like, their parents were the first ones to come here, And that struggle, the hoarding, wanting to hold on to every penny, keeping old stuff that like doesn't work anymore. It's like, no, you can like let go of that now. Like you don't need it anymore. They're like, we might need it for something. Like they don't know because that fear, you know, it's like, it's 100%. So ingrained.
100%.
It's so ingrained.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear like what your relationship with money, how that's evolving.
My issue with money was so like one of the concepts, right, is like money is always flowing to me. So sort of just again surrendering, but having this belief like, hey, bills are going to get paid, food is going to be on the table. We're going to have a beautiful, lovely life. You know, for me, it's my wife and I, you know, we're building our family together, and money is always flowing to me. So like that was a mentality that I did not grow up with. So we're talking families, that's fine. And I give my dad shit for this all the time. So I have no problem saying this, because I would say this to his face. But like, he's very much so more of like, gotta save every dollar. So let me buy like super cheap clothes, even though I'm gonna have to swap it out here in 6 months, versus like if you just bought better quality, like you could have it. Like I have Lululemon sweatpants from 2016. I still wear them like I bought them the other day.
Yeah. 100%.
Like I'm that proud of them, and they're that good quality. That's a small thing. I understand that not everybody can like buy that type of stuff, but his big thing was not focusing on ways to make more money. It was, how do I save my money? And it's just a different mentality. You look at the world differently. When you get your paycheck, or when you go out to eat, or whatever else you're like, when you're operating in the world, you're not operating from a place of abundance. How can I go out, create value? How can I find new creative ways and America is literally the best country for this. If you have an appetite to go create something, I tell this to my wife all the time. I don't know if I would be a successful mental health speaker, even in Europe. I don't know if they would pay for this. Maybe the UK. But like, how many countries can you be a mental health speaker and coach and write a book that people want to read and have a podcast that people want to listen to? I don't know. Yeah. But so we're fortunate in that sense, but having the abundance mentality. But the big issue that I had was I had no problem with this idea of like, I want to make a ton of money. The problem was, and it took me a while to unravel this, is that my identity started to become fused with making a ton of money. And I'm not just talking like a couple million. Like my goal was like, I want to make 100 million. First off, that's a very arbitrary number, Zach. Why? How is that going to make your life better? But it gets back to that sort of that monkey mind where respect, influence, prestige, all things that you brought up earlier. But when I track it all back, it boiled down to survival, right? If you have respect, if you have prestige, if you have resources, if you have connections, you are more likely to, my brain made this connection, survive in this society. It'll make you safer. And so because I wasn't at that number, my self-worth was diminished. I hear you. And I really had to unpack that, man. And I had to let go and surrender and say, look, if it's on your path to make 100 mil, you're going to make 100 mil. But this obsession with it, this feeling of low self-worth, that you're not enough, and when you're not working 24/7, you feel like you're wasting your life because you should be focusing on making money. I had these beliefs that I needed to be as big as like Tony Robbins and Gary Vee and like all the names we know about. And then when I looked at my reality, I was like, okay, well, I don't have 100 million, and I'm also not on quote unquote Gary Vee or Tony Robbins influence status. It made me feel bad about myself. But rather than hate on them and sort of pull that down and drag that down, I had to be like, okay, where is the flaw in your thinking and belief system here? And that was what I was able to switch. So that was like my big thing, was self-worth tied to money.
I hear you. And you know what I think is really cool and what you shared as well is like, those people could either inspire you or they could make you feel shitty,
Exactly.
And so I heard you sharing like how looking at that would make you feel, less valuable or yeah. Oh, wow. That's super, super powerful. And I think something too is like, I love what you shared about if it's supposed to happen, you know, it'll happen, and just allowing yourself to receive. I think what's interesting too, like one of the biggest things I realized is like, when you get to that point, nothing's going to change.
Yes, dude. Yes. And that was honestly, that was solidified after the honeymoon. Because we just got back from our honeymoon.
Yeah.
We were in Europe. Beautiful trip. Grateful, beyond grateful to have been able to do it. But I would also be lying to you and my audience if I didn't say that there were days when I felt depressed. And I sort of had initially this like layer of guilt, like, it's your honeymoon. It's supposed to be the happiest time of your life. And don't get me wrong, there are memories from that trip that I will literally cherish forever. And I just love my wife. But like, bro, that's for life. Like, I'm with her. Like, I had to remind myself, like, I'm so blessed. I get to like spend a lifetime with her. This is just 2 weeks. But what I learned from that is like exactly what you said. If I had infinite money, infinite, literally FU money, right? Don't have to work. Don't have to hear from you. I don't have to talk to anybody if I don't feel like it. I'm already racks in the bank, right? And all I had in front of me was the whole world. Could travel wherever I wanted, eat as much as I want, drink whatever I want, blah, 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 blah. Would I be happy? No. No, because it would get old. Yeah. Just like with anything else, I would get used to it. And I just don't know how much fulfillment. Like by the end of the trip, I was like, I can't have another 2.5 hour lunch. Like I'm ready to like get it pushing again. And I don't know, maybe that's the American in me who just can't sit still. But yeah.
Well, no, I mean, I think what you to this is one of the big things that I've been reflecting on. Is it was, in line with a lot of what you just shared. I was about what was that, like 3 months ago, right? I had hit some revenue goals. I had hit some like growth goals on social that I wanted. And, there was that initial like high of like, oh, fuck, we did it. That lasted for like 5 seconds. And then, and then I was right back to where I was. And then I sort of realized like, actually I was lower than I was, after. And so I sort of realized like, we always come back to our baseline. And we already know this from when we got Christmas presents or whatever holidays you celebrated, birthday presents, you get that video game and you're hyped and then like you come back to your baseline. And so what I realized is like, it's important for my baseline to feel good. It's important for me to have gratitude throughout the process. It's important for me to take care of myself throughout the process, because if I'm looking or something external to make me feel the high, I'm never going to be fulfilled. It just can't do it. It has to come from me. And that was really powerful because, I still have intentions. I still have goals. I still have things that I desire. But I think a big switch I had to make is like, do I have these desires so that I feel validated, so that I feel like I'm enough? Or can I already give myself that love and that feeling of enoughness? And can these desires just be what is a part of my mission? What I feel like is important, but I'm not tied to that outcome. My happiness isn't, and my self-worth isn't tied to that outcome, because it can never make me feel enough. I'm going to feel worse once I get it, because you're going to realize like, shit, I still feel the same.
I'm still baseline. And when I was going through the process, sort of chasing this thing, I was either at baseline or not having gratitude for little milestones I was accomplishing along the way, because I thought that when I hit this thing, it was going to make me that level up happy. I resonate with that so much. And I feel like to anybody listening, that is such a golden nugget. Like that is like, but people sometimes have to experience it for themselves. Like E.T. the hip hop preacher. I don't know if you've ever heard him.
Yeah, I know he is. Yeah.
He says, don't rush the process, trust the process. And I've had that drilled in my brain since 2016 when I started listening to him. And I had to go out and experience it for myself. And I literally did I'm going on a huge journey with self-love and healing. And I literally I did a hypnotherapy session earlier this week, and I'm going to be doing them. I'm tapping into that subconscious and healing old wounds. But then I also did like a self-love meditation today, which I would have never clicked on before. But exactly what you're saying is the realization that I came to on the honeymoon. And at first it made me really sad because I was like, man, this is supposed to be the very best trip of my life. Again, setting an unrealistic expectation, because how do you even define that? You're also only 30 years old, bro. Like, is this when you want to peak? Like, is this really when you want to peak?
Yeah.
But for me, it made me, because living with an anxiety disorder and on and off depression, like I just don't know when it's going to hit. And so for me, I just sort of felt like, damn, like if this can't make me happy, what is going to make me happy? But then to exactly what you said, I eventually got to the place of, well, no, man, actually, when you're back at home and you're running your process, you're waking up, you're meditating, you're working out, you're writing in your gratitude journal, and then you get to do a little bit of what you love in the service aspect. Get to help people in various ways, speech, coaching, podcast, blah, 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 have conversations like this that fill you up. And then you get to spend time with your friends and your wife. You're pretty happy. Your baseline is at a decent little level, especially when I got over the hurdle with the money thing. So the self-worth felt good. Just, hey, I'm in the world walking in my path. That's good. That's enough for me. And I realized, oh, this whole thing is just the process. That's it.
That's all that. The end is death.
That's it, bro.
That's the end of it.
The whole thing is the process up until death. And no milestone that you achieve will bring you lasting happiness. I mean, look, am I happy? So we upgraded from a 1 to a 3 bedroom. Would I say that I am happier in this place than that? Yes, I will. So that's like sort of that area of gray. I prefer this place mostly because it's just a larger space. There's more room. My wife and I aren't completely on top of each other 24/7. I've got my own office now. So like some of those things are really cool to me, and I have noticed a bit of a change in happiness. But the bigger point being, okay, if I went and bought like the biggest house ever, I mean, is that going to make it like, and I didn't have this work anymore, or I was no longer with my wife, or like some of these like things that make me very happy, like got stripped away. Would I just still want to be in this big ass crib? Like, would that really help me out so much more? I don't think so.
100%. And to your point, it's like, based on what the studies are showing, it's like, it's not that money can't make you happy. It does make you happy to a certain point, because if your basic survival needs aren't met, then that's going to impact your stress level and your happiness, right? But ultimately, money is just allowing you to have freedom, right? But I think the part that we often overlook is like everything we want is just a feeling. It's not actually the tangible thing. We don't care about the green piece of paper. We care about feeling free.
That's a nugget, y'all. Let that sink in. Bro, that is so true. Keep going.
Yeah. And that's one of the big things I realized is like, that's tied to like manifestation and creating and all that, right? A lot of times people are like, of course, this person that's made it can say this or blah, 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 because they already have these material things. But it's like, sure, that probably reinforces some stuff and helps them feel more confident. But ultimately, it was a feeling that allowed them to take the action. And it's a feeling that allows a person to continue to live in a way that feels fulfilling or worthwhile to them. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, if you want more love, give yourself love. If you want more freedom, help yourself feel free, and you'll be able to receive more of that in your life. I think that the thing though, is that we often put more value in the physical thing than in the feeling, without recognizing that ultimately what we want is the feeling part. And we have access to feelings anytime we want them.
Yes, and that was exactly what the meditation talked about today in the hypnotherapy session, as I'm tapping more into sort of this healing side of things, is yes, all of it is already inside of you.
Mm-hmm.
All of it. The self-love, the compassion, the freedom, that rich mindset, the wealth, you can tap into it, the health, you can get all of it. It's already there. It's just whether you want to emphasize that and tap into that or not. And that it's a subtle shift. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because it's no longer focusing on the external materialistic things as the thing that's going to fill you up. But to your point, it's the feeling that you want. You can manifest and create that whenever you want.
Yeah. And the cool thing about that is that, like, that will literally lead to it coming to you in the physical form.
True. I mean, that's so true. It's so true, because I've seen that in my life.
Yeah. Because it's all energy. It's all vibration, you know? It's just a representation of, like, that feeling is a representation of the physical, you know, form of it. But it's all the same thing. That was a big thing for me once I realized, like, oh, okay, like this, I mean, that's the crazy thing about money, right? It's like there were times where I didn't have a lot in the bank, and I would, you know, I started reading on, like, Think and Grow Rich and Joe Dispenza, and, like, just learning a lot about manifestation. And then I literally just started telling myself that I was a millionaire. And just really, I would visualize every day. And I started having moments where, like, I felt money coming to me. It was so weird. It was so, you know, and then a couple months later, money starts coming to me, and I'm just like, oh, fuck, you know.
That is so wild.
It's
because it's true.
Yeah. It changed on the inside, because I was rejecting it in a lot of ways.
And you were rejecting it because, getting back to your belief system, did you feel that making money was a bad thing?
No, I was rejecting it just because I had blocks around me feeling, worthy, I guess, of receiving, or, you know, because a lot of, like, someone putting out their work, you know, or selling their things, or raising their prices, or, you know, whatever it is. You know, a lot of that is, you know, dependent on how you feel about yourself.
True.
And so if you feel like, oh, I'm capable, or I can do this, or I'm worth this, you know, and you're just vibrating there, then that's what you will receive. You know?
Yes. Oh, I know completely and totally, because that's, I mean, as an entrepreneur and sort of like, I am the business. Like,
it's you.
If I died tomorrow, which again could potentially happen, like, the Smashing the Stigma workshop that I do at colleges would cease to exist. So when I talk to people, when we get down to, like, okay, we love your program, we see the value, we want you to come in and give the speech, and it gets to the money discussion, they're talking to me. It's not like they're talking to somebody else, and it's like this product, and I'm 7 layers removed from sort of people's reactions, and because people react, they do react, like everybody sort of has their own interpretation of what's valuable and how they see the worth, and some people don't even bat an eye at my rate. They're like, yep, 100%, see the value, need you there, boom. And then other people are like, oh, no, sorry, can't do that, or really, that's what you charge. And it's like, this is what I charge. But I had to get there too with that as well, because when you want to help people so badly, you're sort of like, well, and it's also, and I'm sure you felt this way too, where it's like, I love this a lot. I would do it for free, but that's just not feasible. We're not we're not in a barter system. Like, I'm not going to give you a speech and then you're going to feed me a meal and house me for the next month and put clothes on my, you know what I mean? Like, I need some sort of compensation to keep being able to do this. And that 100%. Was a thing that I had to get over.
Nice. Yeah. You know what? Do you follow Alex Hormozi at all?
No, I don't.
Okay. Because I think to your point of needing to be compensated, what I realized too, just by human nature, is like, if you give it away for free, people don't value it as much.
Yep.
Like you invest more in it and they invest more in it if they actually pay for it.
I agree.
And we just psychologically value things more when they cost more, right? So like, if there's a reason why people buy like thousand, like we're like Virgil Abloh. I love Virgil, R.I.P. But
I
like,
know.
you can put out $150 Jordans, and then Virgil Abloh will put like a tag on them and write like his signature, and they'll go for $1,000. And
Yep.
you'll probably get that pair of shoe and take way more care of it because his signature is on it. But it has nothing to do with the difference in the shoe. It's just how much you paid for the shoe that
Right.
makes it more valuable to you, that makes it help your self-esteem more, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's another thing, is like, you almost need to charge a decent amount of money just for people to really invest in it, and for you to have that energetic investment as well, right? Because if you're going out of your way for free, then you just don't care as much, regardless of
Exactly.
how much the work is important to you, you know, unless you're choosing to do that. You know, if you're like, okay, I got enough, I can do this, that's one thing. But at the same time, that person receiving it still would probably care less about it as well. Even versus they paid $1 for it, they'd probably care a little more, you know?
I've totally felt that with my energy too. I care about all my programs, but on the bigger ticket items, there's a lot of prep work that goes into it. And I'm sort of like, they paid for it. So they're going to get the very best version of Zach in this program and everything. So I agree that energy piece is huge. And I just think it makes a big difference in how people perceive what you bring to the world, the value there, and then it does energize you too.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
Yeah, I do feel like the conversation though around getting away from the external and like really focusing on tapping into those feelings right here and now is so important. It's so important for people to hear. Because I think that our society is like starved for sort of that deeper level that human beings are capable of tapping into, and we sort of know that like buying the super nice watch and this, that, and the other is sort of like going to eat fast food, right? Like it's food, and if you eat it, not all the time, but if you eat it occasionally, like it's not going to kill you. And it tastes decent, but like the nutritional value is just not there. Like if I eat a McDonald's cheeseburger, that is just not the same as eating like some grass-fed steak and a salad and like some grilled up veggies. They're very different meals. One is very filling and nutritious. The other one might taste good, but it's empty. And if you only dine at McDonald's, I know there was like that documentary that came out years and years and years ago, like you're going to get sick and you're going to get really sick. And I think that that's sort of where we're at right now, which is just we're getting sick off these nutritionless values. And what you're talking about is tapping into something that's already inside of us that we can access whenever we want, regardless of status, money, not saying that money is a bad thing or status or this, that, and the other, but if you're looking for those things to fill you up and that's all you're feeding yourself, you're going to get sick, just like the same way with McDonald's.
Yeah. It's going to feel super, super empty for sure. Yeah. I do have something in 5.
That's okay.
Cool.
So, let's wrap this up, man. Is there anything else that you sort of want to share with my audience? Anything that you're thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. What else am I thinking about? Yeah, I mean, I feel like one of the biggest things that I've had to learn. I know you were talking about hypnotherapy and the mind. I feel like, you know, understanding that like so much of our conditioning comes from our parents or our caretakers. And so we have these things that we needed to do to feel safe, to cope. But, now as we get older and as we are sort of in charge of our lives, it's super, super important to look at those wounds and that subconscious conditioning, because like one of the most fascinating statistics that I learned, in the last year is that like 95% of our decisions and our thoughts are led by our unconscious mind. Yes. So literally like almost everything we're doing and thinking is based on our programming, which is wild. So you can want to do something, but if you had to cope in one way as a kid, that's going to be your response, even as you're an adult, and so just really, that's I think one of the most important things is understanding like, okay, how do I bring awareness to some of these, buried thoughts and beliefs about myself? And then how can I go about changing those? I think that's one of the most like important things.
I literally love that so much. And I'm thinking to myself that has to be a follow-up podcast episode, because
100%.
I interviewed another guy who, his name's Asante. He told me about The Body Keeps the Score of the book, which I actually already had. I just hadn't opened it up and read it yet. But we talked all about that. His upbringing, sort of like the things that he had to do to feel safe, and how that manifested in his adult life. So I feel like you and I have to unpack that, because I think a lot of people want to know what that process looks like and sort of start connecting the dots on like, how do I, because I learned that too about the subconscious, like how much of our just deep programming, like the part of the brain that this prefrontal cortex just can't get to. And no matter how many times we say it, it's sort of like, no, like this is how we have to respond to keep ourselves safe. What you can do to heal that.
Yeah. That's so much of my work and my focus right now. So I'd love to revisit that and definitely share all the things, because that's like one of the things I'm most like excited about and curious about right now, because it's such a game changer. And it's possible to shift it, and then your world changes.
100%, man. Well, I know you got this call coming up, so I want to get you on your way, but I just appreciate you coming on, Kyle. And where can people find you?
Yeah, beautiful. So the best place to find me right now would be on Instagram or TikTok at Kyle Somersall, KYLESOMERSALL, and all my links are in my profile, so you can explore from there.
Perfect. Right on, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on. You have a great weekend, and we'll be in touch.
Thanks for having me, Zach.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Right on, Kyle. Thanks, man.
No doubt. See ya.